countries on the face of the planet. And now we're 6 times more likely to be killed than white women. Make sure you stick around for hour two, just so we can unpack what this means for Black women all over this country and what all of us should be doing to reduce these types of disparities. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. All weekend, I was just so disturbed. The headline that I led with in terms of the news, Donald Trump, he makes outrageous comments, so many and so frequently, it's almost hard to keep up with them. But when he makes comments about Black folks, we all need to be paying really, really close attention, because we are in a critical election year. And there are folks out there, African American people like this pastor in Ohio and others, who consider themselves conservatives. Brian Donalds in Florida, Congressman Tim Scott in South Carolina, a senator who's supposed to be on the short list for Donald Trump to be vice president. There are Black Republicans out there with pretty big platforms who are endorsing Trump, who's standing by Trump, who are not just endorsing him, but who said they're going to work really, really hard this year to make sure that more Black folks, as many as 20, if not more percent, vote for Donald Trump and the Republican Party. We know that Russia is working overtime in terms of bots and disinformation campaigns, targeted many at the Black community to make sure that Black folks are confused about who has done what for them and which party they should be voting for. We've heard some of these surrogates for Donald Trump, some of these Black surrogates make these, repeating the Republican talking points that Blacks have been voting Democratic for decades, and Democrats have never done anything for Black folks. Yes, with that straight face, there are Black Republicans saying that, and those talking points are being repeated by Black folks that don't even consider themselves Republicans. And on this show, I'm constantly reminding folks of what Democrats have done for us and trying to think of what Republicans have done for us. It's very easy to just look around, i.e., start with our vice president. That's what Democrats did for us, gave us the first African American female to be vice president of this country. Can Republicans say that? Look at Ketanji Brown Jackson. Democrats did that, gave us the first African American female to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court. Can Republicans say they did that? Look at the unemployment rate for African Americans, the lowest unemployment rate ever in the history of this country. Democrats did that. Can Republicans say they did that? Look at the student loan debt that, despite being blocked by the U.S. Supreme Court, the conservative court appointed by, mostly the latest members appointed by Donald Trump, $1.5+ billion in student loan relief that impacts over 3 million students, the majority of whom are people of color and Black people. Donald Trump and Republicans tried to, and are still trying to, block the relief of student loan debt. So the list just goes on and on. So when you get this disinformation, when you get these tweets on your Twitter, your X account, when you get this information pushed out to you on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, make sure you know the facts. Don't get fooled by these slick talking Republican conservatives, some of whom are more eloquent than others. Some of them just sound like straight coons. Let's just call it what it is. But really, really make sure you are checking the facts. When they say things like, if we can spend $800 million on Ukraine, we can relieve student loan debt. Hello, Joe Biden has relieved over $1.5 billion. And that's despite, as I said, being blocked by Republicans. So please don't go out repeating these Republican talking points without having the facts, because one, you're just spreading disinformation, and two, you look pretty ridiculous. So let's go back to this. We like Donald Trump because he's been indicted. Is there anything more insulting, offensive, or racist that a white person can say to Black people? To look out into a group and say, I see the Blacks, and they like me because they've been indicted like me. Like, that defines Black folks. Like, we like our president to be indicted. And then to suggest that somehow he has been discriminated in the criminal justice system in the way that we have. Again, that is complete and utter nonsense. Donald Trump has not experienced any, and I'm a civil rights lawyer, Harvard trained, trust me, he has not experienced any discrimination in the criminal justice system. Nothing that comes even remotely close to the discrimination that African Americans face in our criminal justice system each and every day. And trust me, he's not trying to do anything to make sure that that discrimination against Black folks ends. And so I don't know how these Black folks who are supporting Donald Trump sleep at night, knowing that he has painted us all pretty much as criminals and has said that we can appreciate him because now he is a criminal. Well, Donald Trump, Black Republicans, I tend to like my president not in jail, not indicted, and definitely not facing 91 criminal charges. And prior to Donald Trump being on the scene, that was the standard for our president. Like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be indicted. Maybe you shouldn't be facing criminal charges and criminal trials throughout this country. And to suggest that somehow now that is the standard is both offensive and racist. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things: increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice. Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough.
Oh, this cold.
Honey,
Honey?
you need DayQuil Severe Honey.
DayQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a honeylicious taste, because life doesn't stop for a cold.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Ugh, no, I'm getting a cold.
Honey.
Try DayQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu relief. DayQuil Severe with honey flavor. The daytime coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, honeylicious, power through your day medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Meet Cheryl.
Hey,
She's on vacation and lost in the moment. Unfortunately, so is her Chase debit card.
it's gotta be somewhere.
Maybe she lost it at salsa night.
These skirts should have pockets.
Or maybe she lost it at Pilates.
3 and 2 and
But she's not worried. With the Chase mobile app, she can lock her card till it turns up. Tools that help protect. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king.
If you're looking for the most epic place on earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions.
We are back and I guess we are tracking. That's the word. Get it out. Tracking today's breaking and trending news with Chris Scott and Dr. Carlos Hill. Carlos, where do we start with these insulting, racist comments from Donald Trump? Not only about we like him because he's been indicted, and of course we can identify with folks who've been indicted, but also I guess there's some rumor out there that Black folks bought up all of his $400 gold high top tennis shoes And of course, we like him because he, sells gold, glittery tennis shoes. They said the rumors are that somehow, we are enamored with him more because of his mugshot. Again, that we agree and identify with folks because they have mugshots. Help us understand the psychosis of this man. And then the people, Black Republicans, like those folks who were at that conservative gathering over the weekend, who said they're energized and ready to go out and fight for him and get Black folks around this country to vote for him.
Areva, it makes me sad to have to talk about this. I know because you've already given just a really amazing editorial already, but what I would say is Donald Trump is many things. He's now gaslighter in chief, or he wants to be, right? To try to turn something that is in no way positive into something that is positive. Just as you said, that a defining characteristic to us is incarceration, and that's something that we support him because now he understands our plight. That is the basis of our vote and our support. That's going to be our, like, it's just so ridiculous that we shouldn't even have to talk about it. But I think it portends to what we would experience under him as president. And so that's why I've began to say that this is not just a consequential election or a really important one. I think it's an existential one because what we can expect from Donald Trump is not just more of this, but like even more ridiculousness that will embolden the radical right, as we've seen with the excuse me, with the January 6th insurrection, that they are very willing to do his bidding. And so it should be very concerning to us that he can turn what is very obviously a racist comment into something that supposedly is going to give him Black support. And just the last thing, Areva, any Black person, I would say, who purchased those shoes were doing so in protest to destroy them, right? Let's just put that out there. This was not support for Donald Trump in any way. This was protest. But again, gaslighter in chief turns that into positive headline.
Yeah, and let me correct myself, Chris. I called him Brian. The congressman I'm talking about is Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida, who has been all over Fox News along with Tim Scott supporting Donald Trump. Chris, what are they missing about when you say that Black folks like me because I've been indicted? By definition, you're saying that's who we are, that we are a bunch of indicted people. Why are people getting that connection between that and police brutality? Because so much of police brutality is about implicit bias, right? It's about seeing a Black person and automatically thinking that they're dangerous, thinking that they are an indicted criminal even before you stop them, pull them over, or even have a conversation with them. How do we get folks to see the connection between Donald Trump's rhetoric, whether it's calling Latinos rapists and criminals, or basically calling us criminals? I mean, that's essentially what he has said. It says Black folks can identify with me because they are criminals. And so when people see us as criminals, that means we are dangerous. That means arrest them. That means shoot them. So that's the kind of brutality that we protest against in the streets, but yet there are folks saying, I want to go out and cause other folks to vote for him.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. You're never going to get 100% of one voting block. I mean, we know that Black voters are not a monolith, even though overwhelmingly we go towards Democratic candidates going on. This is just another step in the Donald Trump minstrel show for 2024 at this point. And how many stereotyped connections can I make? Still throw it in your face and say, by the way, I know you're still going to vote for me. I think, it is up to Democrats to make sure that we do a great job of educating our voting base on the differences, the misinformation that his campaign puts out versus what we know the Biden-Harris administration has actually accomplished and also fought for. But at the end of the day, this is a man that, took out an ad calling for the death penalty against Central Park 5. He has the Obama birther scandal. He tried to say our vice president wasn't qualified to be vice president because her parents were migrants. I mean, the puns do not stop, and his stereotypical quips do not stop. But it is our job to remain vigilant in making sure that we educate folks, because we know a lot of misinformation is coming this cycle, and it's not going to stop from him. He truly believes that. I think he could take what was maybe 12% of support, thinks he can push it to about 20%. And why I think he is definitely mistaken, it is our job to make sure without a doubt that he is mistaken.
Yeah, Chris, Carlos, I should say, someone said something very interesting to me over the weekend. They compared Donald Trump and Joe Biden as divorcing parents. So Joe Biden, the parent that stays the child, primary caregiver in the home every day with the child, is held to this really incredibly high standard. Donald Trump, the wayward, parent that's not there, never been there, shows up, with a big teddy bear, hasn't paid child support, hasn't done any homework, hasn't gone to any games, hasn't done anything that remotely makes them a good parent, but the bar is so low. A teddy bear from the dollar store. They show up with, drop off at the doorstep, say, kiss you on the forehead and pat you goodbye. Oh my God, what a loving, great dad he is. Is that what's happening in this election? Because I'm reading this op-ed piece too by a New York Times op-ed columnist that says Biden is in danger of losing Michigan and with it the whole election. And she goes on in the article interviewing Palestinian Americans, Arab Americans outside of Detroit who want Biden to do. I mean, it's a laundry list of things that Donald Trump would never even consider doing, is not going to consider doing. But yet she's willing, she said, not to vote this time for Joe Biden unless he does all of these things before the election. And as much as she says it pains her, she would vote for Donald Trump, knowing as a sophisticated voter, he's not going to do one thing on this list of 10. So is that just the nature of being president? I mean, I don't want to be like, whiner or, griping. If that is the job of the president, it comes with the territory. Is that, something we should just say, hey, it just comes with that big job?
No, I mean, I think being an incumbent doesn't give you a higher threshold, and it certainly shouldn't in an election where Donald Trump is going to be the key opponent. But somehow or another, because of all of the over time, the ways in which the ageism against President Biden has hurt his poll numbers, even with an economy that's healthy, even with a lot of, inflation going down, all these things that should be in his favor, you have him really suffering in the polls because of these questions around can he serve, and then some of the gaps. And so it's he's being held to a different standard. But Donald Trump, because the Republican Party cannot put anybody else up but Donald Trump, it's always going to be lopsided, right? It's never going to be because I don't think the Democrats would ever accept anyone remotely like Donald Trump. And so it's always going to be this kind of situation if Trumpism continues.
Yeah, and I do want to just explore that a little more when we come forward, Chris. This notion, again, I'm going to read when we come forward, this laundry list of things this Palestinian American says she has to see from Joe Biden before she would vote for him. And again, recognizing that Donald Trump is no friend to her community. She recognizes that, but is basically saying she would vote for him as punishment, as a way of punishing Joe Biden because he doesn't, check off these 10 things that she has determined he must do within the next several months as it relates to, Palestinians. That and more when we come forward, right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Time. More of Areva Martin when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. President Biden will visit the U.S.-Mexico border Thursday as he faces sharp criticism for his immigration policy. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who is Black, told reporters the president will urge Republicans to take up the border deal recently negotiated by a bipartisan group of senators. The deal fell apart earlier this month after sharp opposition from Republicans who say it didn't go far enough to curb the flow of illegal immigration. The Baltimore Book Festival is returning. Black Mayor Brandon Scott joined Councilwoman Odette Ramos to announce the 25th anniversary will be held during the last weekend of September. The last time the festival was held was before the pandemic in 2019. It will feature authors, booksellers, and vendors from various neighborhoods across the city. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Hawthorne on the 105 east before Crenshaw Boulevard. Traffic slow from the 405 due to a crash cleared up to the right shoulder. Porter Ranch 118 east before Reseda Boulevard. That's crash block of the two left lanes and traffic's heavy from DeSoto Avenue. We look at news out of West LA, 405 south before the 10. That earlier crash has cleared. Traffic's still pretty heavy from Getty Center Drive. Silver Lake on the 101 south before Silver Lake Boulevard. That's another crash move to the right shoulder. And then Boynton Park on the 91 west off ramp to Beach Boulevard. That's a stall on the left lane of the off ramp.
Need to hire? You need Indeed. Their all-in-one platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. And Indeed's interview tool lets you schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from their website. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Today's Black History Month sports moment. On April 8th, 1974, Atlanta Braves star Hank Aaron hit a home run off Dodgers pitcher Al Downing to become Major League Baseball's all-time home run leader. The blast over the left field wall in Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium gave Aaron 715 career homers, one more than Babe Ruth. For 39 years, Ruth had been baseball's home run king with 714. An African-American had become baseball's new home run king. Aaron had possession of one of the most treasured records in all of sports. Aaron finished his career with 755 homers before retiring in 1976. On August 7, 2007, Barry Bonds passed Aaron on the home run list, but Bonds' record of 762 homers is not recognized by Major League Baseball because of Bonds' alleged use of steroids. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte with the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial. In a public opinion survey commissioned by KBLA Talk 1580 and conducted by Viteris, the Black voters surveyed were highly enthusiastic about the March 2024 primary. The race for Los Angeles District Attorney is being hotly contested. Incumbent DA George Gascon's efforts to implement progressive criminal justice reforms have generated pushback from within his own office, the broader law enforcement community, and some in the general public. He was the subject of at least 2 failed attempts to qualify recalls. The concerns about crime are reflected in the polling results of Black voters. Nearly 1 in 4 have been victims of violent crime or have someone close to them who has been a victim. 1 in 5 Black voters have personally been victims of property crime in the last 2 years. A majority of respondents feel less safe than they did a year or 2 ago, but they reject the notion that criminal justice reform has gone too far. This year, Black voters will be looking for candidates who speak to the complexity of the issues as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach. Nearly half of Black voters have an unfavorable view of DA Gascon, but his challengers are largely unknown. Nearly half of the Black voters are also undecided, which means there's a clear opportunity for candidates to connect with Black voters. Our poll makes 3 things abundantly clear. Black voters matter. Black voters are closely following this race, and the candidates for DA have a lot of work to do. KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to the mobilization and use of the franchise to empower our audience to identify and pursue their interests in advancing equity, inclusive representation, and multiracial solidarity. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte. We welcome your feedback.
Politics has become so messy lately, it's hard to find a reason to be hopeful. Hi, my name is Shakira. I'd like to tell you why Adam Schiff gives me hope. My parents raised me to take my right to vote seriously, so I try to stay on top of what's going on. I saw Adam Schiff lead the impeachment and insurrection hearings. He seemed like someone I could believe in. Then I actually met him at the MLK parade in South Central LA this year. Adam listened. He cared. I got to see who he is. He understands the struggle we have with the cost of living, all the parents working extra shifts and taking second jobs to get by. He gets a threat to our democracy and our freedoms. Adam Schiff knows how tough things really are for a lot of us, and I believe he's going to do something about it. It gives me hope, but hope isn't enough. We need to vote for Adam Schiff for Senate.
I'm Adam Schiff, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Schiff for Senate.
City of Los Angeles tenants know these facts about eviction and consumer debt. Tenants can't be evicted if rental arrears are eligible to be treated as consumer debt. Tenants who followed certain COVID-19 pandemic protections under state law can't be evicted for past due rent. Landlords can collect rental arrears in court as consumer debt, but tenants cannot be evicted if they provided a declaration of COVID-19 hardship and paid 25% of rent owed. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
We are back, and Dr. Carlos Hill and Chris Scott are here helping me break down today's trending and breaking news. And in hour two, we're going to be talking about this shocking new study that says Black women are 6 times more likely to be killed than white women. We're going to talk to one of the principal authors of that report, as well as talk to a community organizer. Like, what's behind these numbers? Why are Black women more likely to be killed than white women, and what can we all do as a community to impact these numbers? We're talking about politics in this hour, talking about Michigan, Chris, in particular, reading this article by a columnist in the New York Times that says Michigan is going to be a problem for Joe Biden because of the large number of Arab American voters and the need, obviously, to win that state. These voters are going to the polls on Super Tuesday, and many have been encouraged to vote uncommitted as a way to put Joe Biden on notice that they are not happy with the way he is handling the crisis in Israel, Hamas, Palestinian crisis. And they have a list of demands that they want to see the president make. They say they hear him when he talks about wanting to be sympathetic to the Palestinians who are dying, but they say at the very minimum, he needs to completely overhaul America's relationship with Israel, demand a permanent end to hostilities, and end American military aid to Israel, as long as it is at war with Gaza or conducting war activities in the Gaza Strip. Now, these group of voters say they want funding to Israel to be withdrawn. This is at a time that Biden is trying to push through in Congress more funding, not just for Ukraine, but for Israel. And we know there are lots of Jewish people in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And given how those folks have been outspoken, particularly in the Democratic Party, what are the chances of Biden being able to do any of these things that are being demanded by these voters? And if he doesn't do something that appeases them, is he likely to lose Michigan in your estimation?
Well, I think Michigan is definitely going to be a challenge this cycle. I think no matter what happens at this point, I think for some folks, they're going to say too little, too late. With everything that has happened. And so there's going to have to be work put in to the state a lot by the presidential campaign to make sure that it still goes blue this time. We know that Donald Trump surprisingly won in 2016, so we know it's possible. And the pathway is having voters that typically are Democrat be apathetic and decide not to show up to the polls at all. Now, when we're talking about overall what some of those demands are, I think it's a really complicated process. We know oftentimes in situations like this, there are a lot of demands from both sides. And so I think where it has to be is first, you just have to be able to have a conversation on where both sides are and what they want to see done. I know there's been a lot of calls for whatever solution happens to involve both states, looking at Palestine, looking at Israel. But I think it's kind of hard pressed to believe that you're going to see a complete overhaul and an immediate stop of funding at this point. But I do think and hope that the conversations that need to be had start happening so we can continue to move past this point and get to the work that is going to determine a lot for our country and just where we stand as a nation in the world standing going forward.
What do you think, Carlos? I mean, Black pastors, 1,000 or more, have written a letter to Joe Biden demanding a ceasefire, demanding that he end aid to Israel. Chris is saying, a major overhaul in how America deals with Israel is not likely to happen between now and November. And the Republicans are counting on really those Democrats who are going to be so angry at the way Biden has handled this to either sit out, and some may end up voting for Donald Trump, even though they know what his history has been with regards to both Netanyahu and the Muslim Arab community.
Areva, this is the most complex geopolitical situation in the world, and it is creating chaos in the Middle East. And at minimum, it has to create chaos in our election, right? So that's just almost a given because there are no good answers here, right? In any way, right? And of course, we should be calling for a ceasefire. We have to call for that because so much suffering is happening.
But Biden's team is saying to call for a ceasefire would put the hostages at greater risk. And they are taking the position that they are negotiating behind the scenes, calling for temporary stays in the fighting to negotiate this hostages. So they've given us a reason why they're saying they can't call for a ceasefire.
And Areva, like I said, this is the most complex. There's a lot of things at stake, and there's a lot of things that people who see the carnage that's happening in Gaza want to see that stopped immediately. But at the same time, there's these complex political realities. So that's what I'm saying. There's this impossibility of this is going to create chaos because Joe Biden has no good choices here. He's damned if he do, he's damned if he don't. But the realities are what we want to see, what I want to see, what I think all people of conscience wants to see, right, is the end of the violence against Gazans and the return of the hostages. But how do you get there given the realities of the situation?
Yeah, you're right, Carlos. This is so complex. And when people start talking about Joe Biden doing X, Y, Z and demanding things like that, I think it overlooks all of these nuances and the historical nature of this fight and the stronghold that the Jewish community, has on our Democratic Party. Just like we talk about Black women, being a reliable voting bloc, we know that Jewish Americans have also been a reliable voting bloc in the Democratic Party as well as Palestinians, all equally important to our coalition and to our Big Tent party. But Chris, what do you say to those people that say, okay, you can't call for a ceasefire because you say it's going to hurt the hostage negotiations? You can't obviously say we're going to withdraw all aid. I mean, that just doesn't seem even feasible in this moment. But is there anything more? Because we can't just lecture to people and we can't just tell them the alternative and Donald Trump is worse. People aren't hearing that. There are 15,000 plus people in Michigan right now that say they're going to vote uncommitted in the primaries as a way of pressuring Biden to do more. But I don't really know what that more is. So, if you're advising the Biden team? Is it let Michigan go and try to pick up another state, or can we afford to lose Michigan?
By all means, it's definitely not let Michigan go at this point. I think what the strategy you would hope would be, again, as you're continuing to have these conversations and figure out, can we find a common ground between both parties? I think you also have to pivot and talk about what still has been done domestically to benefit those communities and make their life better. At the end of the day, and I said it on this show before, you don't want to call this a wedge issue, but to a degree, it is a wedge issue because it doesn't affect everybody and is likely not necessarily going to be that full big picture top 3 issues that we know usually comes back down to the economy, is likely going to be reproductive rights with everything that has been going on and who has the better outlook for the future. But I think if you can at least start being willing to have the conversation in the room to see what both sides want, and then also be able to talk about, this is what we have been able to produce for your community. And if you give us another 4 years, we know we're not at the solution you want us to be, but we can get better with this. Plus, we can do this for you domestically. I think that's a heck of a lot better.
You just very artfully, Chris, told us that this issue ain't really that big of an issue for most people. I don't know if that's what I heard. I heard you say, you know what, Areva, stop reading all these articles about the war, because they really ain't gonna be driving people to the polls or making people sit at home. Is that what you heard, Carlos, too?
I heard something like that, yes.
It's a big
you
issue.
did it
but
real smooth. I'm just gonna tell you. You like Areva, move on, girl. It ain't that important. Okay, so we're gonna move on because it ain't that important, according to Chris. Some breaking news involving Sean Diddy Combs. He was sued today in federal court by a producer on his most recent album who accuses the music mogul of sexually harassing, drugging, and threatening him over more than a year. The producer, Rodney Lil Rod Jones, says in a lawsuit that he lived and traveled with Combs from September 22 to November 23, during which time he recorded hours of video and audio of Combs, his staff, and others engaging in serious illegal activity. Now, among these allegations is that Combs forced Jones to procure sex workers and pressured him to engage in unwelcome sex acts with them and others, and that Combs gave laced alcoholic beverages to people who attended parties at his homes. More shocking and jaw-dropping allegations in this lawsuit just filed today. When we come forward, we're going to talk about Sean Diddy Combs being sued again, this time not for things that allegedly happened decades ago, but by someone who says they worked with him just recently. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you support public education? More than 38,000 educators at United Teachers Los Angeles do too. Together, we have fought for a better public education for our students and communities, and having you on our side has been essential in our fight for better public schools. Together, we will continue to work for public schools with green spaces, more mental health staff, smaller class sizes at every grade level, and a higher investment in the Black Student Achievement Plan. We are UTLA, and you make us stronger.
Politics has become so messy lately, it's hard to find a reason to be hopeful. Hi, my name is Shakira. I'd like to tell you why Adam Schiff gives me hope. My parents raised me to take my right to vote seriously, so I try to stay on top of what's going on. I saw Adam Schiff lead the impeachment and insurrection hearings. He seemed like someone I could believe in. Then I actually met him at the MLK parade in South Central LA this year. Adam listened. He cared. I got to see who he is. He understands the struggle we have with the cost of living, all the parents working extra shifts and taking second jobs to get by. He gets a threat to our democracy and our freedoms. Adam Schiff knows how tough things really are for a lot of us, and I believe he's going to do something about it. It gives me hope, but hope isn't enough. We need to vote for Adam Schiff for Senate.
I'm Adam Schiff, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Schiff for Senate.
Environmental justice is racial justice. This is KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertari Plessy. Nefertari felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single-parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and before we went to break, we're talking about this $30 million lawsuit filed against Sean P. Diddy Combs by a producer that said he worked with him on his last album. This producer's name is Rodney Lil Rod Jones. He said he traveled with Combs, and his lawsuit is not just against Combs, but it's also against his son, against the Universal Music Group CEO, against a former Motown Records CEO, as well as some others filed in New York, claiming that P. Diddy and these various individuals engaged in a RICO enterprise, that Combs had underage girls engaging in sexual acts, solicited sex workers engaging in sexual acts, some pretty, illicit and explicit allegations. In the article, Combs's lawyer says that these allegations are not true, that they have proof that they're fake and false, but the lawsuit alleged by Mr. Jones also says he has receipts, says he has videotape, he has screenshots, he has other information. We know that Combs has been he has been sued by 4 women who have accused him of sexual assault. We know one of the lawsuits involving Cassandra Ventura was settled the day after it was filed. And then we know 2 other women came forward. I think it's Lisa Gardner and Joey Dickerson Neal have filed lawsuits, and another one under a Jane Doe. So P. Diddy, obviously, Chris, has had issues. He's had to step down from chairman of Revolt TV. Hulu scrapped a reality television show that was set to go forward in December. And he was suing his partner in his tequila business. And we know he withdrew that because apparently there was some kind of settlement. So I don't know. Is this folks piling on Sean P. Diddy, or is literally in 23, he's engaged in this conduct, you think, alleged in this lawsuit?
Well, I think it could possibly be a little bit of both at this point. We know once you get to a certain level in artistry and kind of celebrityness, you feel like the rules don't fully apply. And even if you almost got caught with one, you're more willing to try it again sometimes, as we've seen, well documented. But we also know that once you have that one case pending, likely you usually see a whole bunch come after. We've seen this happen a number of times, whether or not we're talking about Bill Cosby, whether or not it's Deshaun Watson. And we're not saying that any of these allegations aren't true, But once you have that one case open, the floodgates are fully open with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see at least several more come after this.
Yeah, and Carlos, I think many in the Black community, we feel like, we gave R. Kelly a pass, that we knew about the kind of conduct that he was engaged in. We knew about it decades and we let it go. We bought his music, we danced to his music, we celebrated him. And then when it really, we had this Me Too movement and those allegations, were proven in many cases to be true with him as it related to underage girls, do you think some of that may be happening with Sean Diddy Combs, or the Black community is like, we don't want to be fooled like we were with R. Kelly. We want to be more discerning. We want to, hold people, even in our own community, accountable if they are engaged in, this kind of conduct that's alleged. And as Chris said, these are just allegations. Nothing's been proven in a court of law. But might that be happening, you think, in our community?
I mean, Areva, I would maybe say we are on this issue moving more in step with American society and the ways in which American society is increasingly holding people accountable. It's not that we were lax, it was that we were in step with what American society, even though this is no kind of admonishment, this is no kind of sort of saying that it's okay. But I think that given what you said, the Me Too movement, but also just how much we've come to know through people like Jeffrey Epstein about how horrific these things can be for women. I think we have a different sensitivity. And that is accounting for why, when these things occur post, Jeffrey Epstein or other cases. Bill, I hate to even mention them, put these cases together, but it's created a climate where we take these things more seriously. And when they hit the news, they become things that are much more deeply concerning than they had been before. So I think we're, as a society, much more, not just Black people, but as a society, more sensitive to this.
I'm going to agree and disagree with you. And two things can be true at the same time. And here's my slight disagreement. I do think with R. Kelly and even Bill Cosby, because of the historic nature of racism and how Black men in this country have been treated, in particular, even Black women, and we can look at some of the cases, where Black women have come forward to tell the truth about horrific acts perpetrated on them by Black men. There is this sense that we should not, quote unquote, pile on Black men because of, what they already experience in this country by the dominant population. So there is this tendency for us to be less believing of these allegations. And I know this as a lawyer that has handled these kind of sexual harassment cases. And there's also pressure, I should say, on us as Black people to kind of turn a blind eye to things when it involves a Black man, like to protect them because they already face so much. And that's a deeper conversation about, how we protect each other in our community. But I think people are becoming less willing to do that. And we are more willing to call out folks who are engaged in this kind of conduct, whether they're Black, white, doesn't matter. But I can tell you for years for doing this, when somebody came forward and accused a Black person, particularly a Black person that had a high profile, there was a lot of pressure for you not to do that, for you not to bring that case forward, for you not to represent that victim, because this notion that white people get away with it, why the Black man, they're already facing so much, harassment, discrimination, etc. So bigger conversation to be had, but I think you know what I'm saying. And I think we are now moving to a point where those sentiments aren't as strong as they have been in the past. Because trust me, it was there and we were under pressure not to bring cases involving Black men, particularly high profile Black men. We're out of time. Carlos and Chris, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your insights and your brilliance. When we come forward, we're going to talk about this shocking new study out that says that Black women are 6 times more likely to be killed by more likely to be killed than white women. And the reality is a lot of those Black women are being killed by Black men. So gotta have that very difficult conversation about how we keep Black women safe in our community, because I know everybody wants to keep Black women safe, but somehow we keep ending up in these horrible reports with these horrible statistics. So make sure you stick around as we talk about why Black women are being killed so much in this society. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Areva.
Carlos, gotta have you back to have that conversation, because
Thanks, Areva.
Yes, we're gonna have
you're
that.
under a lot of pressure not to talk